Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, How to Convert LinkedIn Connections to Qualified Appointments. My name is Nathanial Bibby, and I'm the Managing Director of Bibby Consulting Group, and we're a LinkedIn marketing agency specialising in generating leads. And I'm fortunate to have with me today a business coach and sales coach I've known for several years now, David Guest. And the reason that I brought David Guest in to be involved in this webinar is he is an expert on sales conversion and process to convert leads into qualified appointments and eventually sales. So welcome, David.
Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Now, look, as we get started, I might get everyone who's on the webinar just to type in yes or that you're there in the chat window, just to make sure that you're hearing us, because technology, we just need to make sure it's all working. So if anyone who's out there can just start typing in yes in the chat window, that'd be great.
Okay, while you're doing that, I might just give you a little bit of an overview as why David is the guy that I chose to get involved. David's actually helped me with my own sales process and conversion, and I wouldn't be able to do this business unless I had one. He's been in the sales business for 23 years, and I guess he's seen a lot of changes over that time, but the principles still apply. And over 750,000 in business education, 15 years of actual coaching and results. That he's a globally recognized as one of the top marketing coaches. So that picture there with Brad Sugar is when he won the Global Marketing Coach Award in 2012. So this isn't just Australia or Melbourne. This is a global winner of the Marketing Coach Award given by Action Coach Brad Sugar, CEO. I guess what I like personally about the way David does things is he practices what he preaches. When he first started his career, he started off earning 30K in a job. By 7 years, that was 300K. Back in those days, that must be worth about equivalent of about 700 or 800K these days. Would that be right, David? Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at those figures before, and it doesn't look like much to some of the salespeople out there today. But at the time, it was considered to be quite astronomical. Now, it's an interesting number because people look at that and go, well, is that boasting? No. What it was is that when I started in sales, $30,000 was pretty much the bottom of the barrel, entry-level position. I was living in Oakley, and my first job was in Epping. So if anyone knows where Epping is from Oakley, it's an hour and a half's drive each way. I did it because it was the only place that would have me. And I also knew that sales was something that you can't learn unless you do it. So I took the job, and the beauty of having a 1.5 hour travel to and from work meant I had lots of time in the car, so I started listening to audiobooks. And what I realized is sales is one of my favorite areas for people to move into because you get paid directly in relation to your ability to sell. So the wage that you earn has nothing to do with how much someone's willing to pay you. It's got everything to do with your ability to convert a prospect into a client. So the only reason I got to this level in sales was purely through a relentless effort to educate myself over 7 years. I never stopped learning during that time. I've never stopped learning to this very day. Reading books. The reason I went into coaching is because I got a lot of questions from people as to, how do you do this and why have you been successful? What's your secret? And what I learned is the secret is hard work. But the hard work is actually building your own education. So I read 2 books every month now just to continue the education. It's not just sales, it's marketing, business, it's psychology. And we'll touch on a bit of that today.
Sure. Okay, so let's get straight into the content. What you're going to get from today, the 3 biggest mistakes people make, we're going to knock those on the head right away so that you don't make those. The 5-step formula to master social selling. And at the end, we're actually going to go into the word-for-word message scripts that we use to turn cold prospects into sales appointments. So that involves what we use on social media as well as how we convert those people.
And the last thing I added there is, when it comes to selling, a lot of people see themselves as pushy salespeople, or, if you get pushy salespeople, you see them as annoying pests. I'm going to talk about how we can become welcome guests in people's lives rather than annoying pests.
Excellent. Okay, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, look, so number 1, and this sounds like an obvious statement. This comes from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, but, I think when it comes to sales, the biggest thing that I train people to do is what is your outcome? What is the end result you're aiming for? Now, it sounds obvious when people say, well, to make a sale. But my challenge is, if you haven't got a clear outcome for a meeting or for an email or for a conversation on the phone, chances are you're going to go in the wrong direction or get hijacked, or you're just going to get frustrated by the lack of understanding what your outcome is.
Yeah.
So it's about being purpose-driven. So beginning with an end in mind is really key, not just to obviously closing the sale, but also to any interaction or communication with someone along the sales process. What I wanted to touch on is that there's a bit of a contrast, and we are talking about social media. And look, I've been in sales for a long time, and what I've noticed is the actual sales process hasn't changed. What's changed is when we use what component of it. In the old school marketing and advertising world, we used to learn the 4 Ps, and the 4 Ps are product, price, place, and promotion. And if you think about what that is, anyone who's done any studies on marketing, this is about making sure you've got the right product and you're in front of the right people, and that you're advertising. Now, that changed around 2007, and it's a sort of arbitrary number, 2007, but it's around the time where social media or internet became a preferred method for people to start getting self-educated on your product, your service, and actually seeking you out. Mm-hmm. So the new marketing rules are sort of simple, and we were just talking about this before the call, Nathaniel, and you were saying, you know, one of the things when we do actually use social media to generate leads and convert them into appointments is we really need to be seen not to be selling. We need to be seen to be serving. And serving means helping people get what they want. So instead of the 4 Ps, I look at the 4 Cs of marketing now. Now, the first one is content, and I think this word is a bit overused in internet marketing now. Because people say, well, what is content? Content means I get someone to write blogs for me, or I write articles for me. What I refer to as content is information that is beneficial to the person you're making contact with.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when when the shift changed towards social media, I think one of the big components that we need to recognize is that it's not actually the business that's defining who their brand is anymore. It's now in the hands of the customers, because the businesses that all thrive are the ones that have outstanding feedback from their customers and clients and do a good job, whereas the ones that don't are just going to eventually become extinct.
Yeah. Yeah, so this whole notion of content is really about making sure that we're providing a lot of information to people up front, that we can starting a conversation that's meaningful, and it's not really just about pitching us. It's about understanding them. Look, the second C is context, and this is quite interesting, because another thing that the internet has allowed us to do is to catch people at certain times in the sales cycle or in the buying cycle, depending which way you're looking at it. So context means providing the right information at the right time. Okay, and I think that the power of having a good CRM, or the power of having you know, social networks, means that we can actually work out where people are at in the buying cycle and make sure that we're approaching them with the right information for that.
So just on that, David, what would be an example of you know, using context to your advantage in the sales, social selling? Yeah.
Okay, so context in social selling, if we look at, for example, LinkedIn, which is what we're talking about today, LinkedIn is one of the most powerful sales tools that I've seen. And the reason I say that is it gives us this window into people's lives. We can see who they're connected to, we can see what groups they're a member of, we can see what's going on in their business world. And based on that, we can actually decide what it is that's relevant to them right now.
Yeah.
Now you think about cold calling in the old days, you would actually call someone and you'd interrupt their day. And you wouldn't know what they were doing, what they were thinking, or anything about them, and your job was to get as much knowledge about where they were at that point in time as possible.
Yes.
So here we are with LinkedIn, where I can actually find out information about you before I even make contact. So I can come to you in context of where you are right now. And it might be that you've just joined a group, or it might be that you've just posed a question. So we've got this ability to transparently look into the background of where people are at, and provide relevant information to them right at this point in time.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
So look, the third one here is connection, and you know, this ties in perfectly with what we're talking about. And what I mean about this one, Nathaniel, is that, you know, if we go back, you know, 10 years ago when I was doing sales training, we used to have this philosophy that we would teach, is that every person has a network. And that network is about 200 people that they know. And if you could get into that network through referrals, you could actually now multiply your connections out. What social media has done is added a couple of zeros to this, okay? Because people don't have one social network, they generally have half a dozen. So they've got their Facebook, they've got their LinkedIn, they've got their actual group of friends, they've got their social network at work, they might be part of a football team or something. So these connections, we have access to these, and we can build into these connections through these networks.
So what you're saying, David, is social media has actually given us more visibility over people's networks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what it means is also that we can have lots of conversations with lots of people simultaneously. We can actually connect faster. We don't have to make a phone call to see how people are going. We can look on their Facebook site, and some people don't like Facebook, some people love it. The thing I love about it most is I can track all my friends and family as to what's going on in their lives. So when I do catch up with someone, it's not like, tell me about what's been going on. It's like, congratulations on the new grandson. Oh, those photos look awesome. How was the trip to Bali? So I'm actually having a deeper understanding of where they're at.
Yeah.
So these connections mean we can track everyone who's important to us quite easily from our desktop.
And in the context of getting referrals and sales, one of the things that I found really cool is on LinkedIn you can see who you've got in common as connections. Sometimes you can see all of somebody's LinkedIn connections.
Yeah.
And the awesome thing is, if you're going to visit a client, you can say, well, would you mind introducing me to this guy and this guy, this guy, because they'd be perfect introductions for me, rather than having to say, hey, have you got anyone that you could refer me to?
And I think it's mandatory, and this is a change in mindset for salespeople, is when I'm talking to someone on the phone now, I am on their LinkedIn page as I'm talking to them. Because I can now see what their hobbies are, I can see what they're interested in, I can see all sorts of different things that give me a bit of depth to the conversation. So the connections are stronger. Okay, so it's not really that we have more connections that are weak, it means that we have the ability to connect at a deeper level with the people that we're making contact with. And the last one here is also really important, and this is about community. Now, you think about what community means. In the traditional terms, it means a group. Okay. Now, in the old days, we would be part of a car club, or we might be part of a user group or an association. Now, associations are really struggling these days because they've been replaced with groups on LinkedIn, groups on Facebook. People are getting their community through online sources. I can find out anything about anything through communities online. What I'm suggesting here is that we, as salespeople, need to be part of these communities.
Yeah, and one of the things that a lot of people will go out and do who haven't got a lot of experience on LinkedIn is they'll create a group.
Yeah.
And it is really a big commitment to start a group. And what a much easier way I recommend you do it and go about it is to find existing groups and find existing conversations that are going on to engage with.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is key. And as we get into the specifics in the later part of this webinar, I know that we're going to be talking about exactly what to do to get the leads moving on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because I can see a lot of frustration with some people where they go, we've tried LinkedIn and it doesn't work for us, or even worse, they've joined that LinkedIn. What's it called when you have the executive?
They have the premium products, the sales navigator, all that kind of stuff.
And they say we're a member of that. And to me, that's fantastic. But the question is, are you utilizing it? Are you getting into communities? Are you getting connections? Are you getting into context and providing the right content?
Yeah.
The old days of sales used to be cold calling, right? And this is a big distinction. And I think this is the epiphany I had around LinkedIn. See, cold calling means outbound calling, hitting people up, interrupting their day to try and sell them something. This is the old whacking bushes philosophy of sales. The more bushes you whack, the more sales you can make. What we've got now is this opportunity to actually get an insight into a person before we contact them. So we don't interrupt them until we have a valid knowledge of who they are, what drives them, and what's important to them. Then we can provide relevant content like candles that lead a path to our door.
Yeah.
So the whole thing on social selling, what we call it, is really changing the paradigm. Instead of going out there and pushing and closing and pushing and closing, what we're looking for is find our target market, do the research on the individual, go in there with relevant content that actually gets them interested. So finding out how we can help them first before we ask them to buy from us.
Yeah, and while we're on this bit, the network that you have on LinkedIn really defines how well it's going to work for you. So it's not like you're messaging your connections. Don't forget that they made a decision at some point to be involved in your network. And even if you're looking at people in your second connections, you do have somebody in common that you know. So it's not like you're just calling anyone out of a phone book. They are people that are within your sphere.